Rhinoplasty, commonly referred to as a nose job, is literally translated as nose reshaping or nose molding. The goals of rhinoplasty are to change the overall shape of the nose, the angles of the nose, but where I typically pride myself on is I really focus on the highlights and shadows that we have commonly neglected in the past. And by focusing on those minute details of the nose, I think allows me to separate myself from many surgeons. And we draw much of our learning of the highlights and contours and details of the nose from the makeup industry. And so when I first started my practice, I spent lots of time with makeup artists learning how to best contour a nose, and I've applied those concepts into my own surgeries. When we talk about rhinoplasty surgery, there have been three major periods of evolution for the surgeries that we perform. When rhinoplasty was first popularized, the subtractive method was used. And this is to say that if a surgeon saw a hump or a large tip, they would go in and they would remove as much as possible. And this typically would lead to several functional problems in the future. Not having cartilage of your nose interferes with your ability to breathe. And so enter structural rhinoplasty, the second phase, where they started the surgery quite similarly. They would remove all of the excess cartilage, but then they would rebuild it using cartilage either from the septum of the nose, the ear, or the rib in order to rebuild the house from the studs up. And this was a very effective technique. However, we generally know that in all surgeries, the more you introduce more variables, the chances are higher of something going wrong. And the typical problems we see with structural rhinoplasty are in mid-vault reconstruction. And that's the reconstruction between the upper third, which is bone, and the middle third, which is cartilage. Once you kind of rasp a hump or take off that bony cap, it's not like a slab of marble that you can continue to reduce and to reduce. At a certain point, it's more like an eggshell. And if you remove the roof of the house, so to speak, you're now looking into the attic or the top floor. And in order to rebuild that area, you can create osteotomies of the bones and bring them closer together, but you cannot do that for the mid-vault. And so surgeons would have to fill those gaps with cartilage taken from the septum called spreader grafts. And we know that even in the most capable hands and in the best surgeons in the entire world, spreader grafts can sometimes malfunction, leading to deviations of the nose or even a sunken or collapsed look. And while the philosophy and concepts have been around for a very long time, it really has only been in the last 10 years that the best surgeons in the world, those trained or even those who have pioneered the structural technique, have adopted preservation and its philosophy to bring it to the next level. And when they met in about 2015 to discuss how they can popularize preservation, they were using these old concepts that many surgeons around the world were using. But the difference was that, frankly, these were the best surgeons in the world, and so the aesthetic results were best, and this is what I was drawn to at the time. And so I felt that if the outcome was what I was looking for, then I would go through the process that they were going through in order to get there. So preservation rhinoplasty, at its core, preserves as much as possible in the nose itself. So instead of rasping with a nail file the hump of the nose and opening up the roof looking into the attic, instead we're actually removing the ground floor and dropping things downwards. Instead of opening up a nose and releasing all of the ligaments that act as internal taping for recovery afterwards, we do a closed surgery, we preserve all the ligaments in order to reduce the swelling after surgery and the variability of potential scar tissue that can result. Instead of moving as much cartilage in the tip as possible, we actually mold the cartilage and fold it onto itself in order to maybe make it half as wide, but twice as strong. And so it's really true that those who perform preservation rhinoplasty at its core not only make noses more beautiful, but they also make beautiful noses that breathe better. And this is why I love preservation rhinoplasty. Other things that I've added over the course of my career have been the closed approach. I truly feel that if I'm able to get into a nose without having to open it up in full, my patients will recover a little bit faster and I can preserve the ligaments. And then the other thing that we've added is a device called the piezotome, otherwise referred to as ultrasonic rhinoplasty. And while I feel that it has been an essential addition to my practice, it really is a technique at its core. It allows me to deliver better precision during my osteotomies or bone reshaping, but it is not a technique that has surpassed or taken over. It really is preservation that we talk about, when we feel that we're delivering the best possible results to our patients.